Hi, I'm Steve and welcome to my kitchen.
Today I'm going to make 2 half loaves of jalapeno cheese bread. They'll taste as good as they look. I'll be using 3 cups bread flour, 1½ teaspoons salt, 1/4 teaspoon instant yeast, 1 cup grated cheddar cheese, 4 jalapeno peppers, 1 tablespoon extra virgin olive oil, and 12 ounces cool tap water. I'm going to start by prepping the jalapeños. I use canned whole jalapeno peppers because they're consistent and convenient. I slice them in half, remove the seeds, and dice. I like to stack 3 or 4 on top of each other when I slice them. It's a little easier. The jalapenos are prepped and ready to go. I set up my workspace with my utensils and my ingredients. I'm going to start with the dry ingredients. 3 cups flour. I use a scoop and shake method for measuring flour. This recipe is very forgiving and you don't have to be exact. Next, 1½ teaspoon salt. I use everyday table salt. There are a number of no-knead recipes in which the salt varies from 1 to 2 teaspoons, depending upon your diet. I use a heaping teaspoon to get my teaspoon and a half. 1/4 teaspoon instant yeast, sometimes referred to as bread machine yeast. Before we add the flavor ingredients, I want to mix the dry ingredients to ensure the salt and yeast are evenly distributed throughout the flour. Now the flavor ingredients. 1 cup grated cheddar cheese. I'm going to give it a stir. I like to mix the cheese before I add the jalapenos. I like to coat the outside of the cheese with flour so it doesn't clump. Next, the jalapenos. Then I'll give it another stir. Now the wet ingredients. 1 tablespoon olive oil and 12 ounces cool tap water. Next, we'll combine the wet and dry ingredients. I'll just scrape the sides of the bowl and form the dough into a ball. And we're done.
Did you see how easy that was? The hardest thing I had to do was get the cheese out of the bag. The only thing we need to do now is cover the bowl with plastic wrap and leave it on the counter to proof overnight, and Mother Nature will do the kneading for us. I'll see you in the morning.
No-knead dough should be proofed for 8 to 24 hours, which gives you a lot of flexibility. You can make the dough in the morning and bake it for your evening meal. Or you can make the dough in the evening, bake the next morning, and have oven fresh bread for your lunch. The dough has proofed overnight and more than doubled in size. It's time to fold, shape, and proof the dough a second time. Bakers have known for years that bread benefits from long proofing times. The no-knead method takes advantage of this principle. It uses a minimum amount of yeast and long proofing times to develop flavor. Meanwhile, the long proofing times replaces the arduous task of kneading. Mother Nature does the kneading for you. I enjoy jalapeno cheese bread in long narrow loaves, so I'll be using a long clay baker. I set up my workspace with the dough off to the left. Flour and utensils off to the right, and off to the far right I have 2 sheets of parchment paper. Next, I'll dust the workspace with flour and scrape the dough out of the bowl. Its stringy nature tells us Mother Nature's done her job. With floured hands, I'm going to lightly pat to flatten, then using a plastic bowl scraper, I'll fold the dough over onto itself, forming in a ball. I'm going to cut the dough in half and form each half into a long loaf. Flour is your friend. Keep the outside of the loaf coated with flour and it will be easy to handle. I placed the dough on the parchment paper and covered it with a flour sack towel to proof. Before I leave the kitchen, I'll prep the oven. I positioned the rack on the lower part of the oven and inserted the baking vessel. I do it in advance so I don't forget. I'm going to proof the dough for an hour and a half, and I want to preheat the oven for half an hour, so I'm setting the timer for 1 hour. Dough should be proofed for 1 to 2 hours, and the oven should be preheated. It's been 1 hour, and I'm setting the oven to 450 degrees. Clay bakers come to temperature faster than cast iron Dutch ovens, so I can start baking as soon as the oven comes to temperature.
Dough has been proofing for over an hour, and the oven is at temperature. It's time to bake the bread.
To garnish the loaf, I cut a jalapeno pepper into 4 sections, put 2 sections on each loaf, added a little cheddar cheese, and it's ready. Next, I'll set the timer for 25 minutes. See you then. The bread should be baked for 25 minutes with the top on the clay baker, then 3 minutes with the top off to finish the crust. After 25 minutes, I took the top off and reset the timer for an additional 3 minutes.
I took the first loaf out and repeated the process for the second loaf. Baked it for 25 minutes with the top on, 3 minutes with the top off. The second loaf is ready. Let's take a look.
Well, what do you think? Looks gorgeous, doesn't it? This loaf tastes as good as it looks. I also use jalapeno cheese bread as my bread bowl for my queso dip. It's in my cookbook. I have a variety of no-knead bread cookbooks. My no-knead bread cookbook has recipes for everything from a boli to a cinnamon roll or caramel pecan roll using the no-knead method. I also have a cookbook called How to Bake No-Knead Bread in a Skillet, or anything else your little old heart desires. It has recipes using a skillet, cookie sheet, baking stone. Well, you really have to see this cookbook to believe how many options are available to you. Thanks for watching.